If you've spent the last few evenings scrolling through endless specs sheets, watching YouTubers yank around the same 5-inch screens, and still can't decide whether a marine GPS system is worth the money, you're not alone. I've been there, too, trying to figure out if the extra sonar layers actually translate into a smoother day on the water, or just a pricier piece of plastic. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Garmin 010-023-6661 GPSMAP 943xsv SideV is marketed as the all-in-one for serious anglers who want to see what's beneath the surface without juggling multiple devices. What makes that claim matter is how it behaves when you're actually out on the lake, ferrying a boat from the dock to the spot where the fish are biting. In my research, I dug through the usual press releases, the handful of user posts on fishing forums, and the product's own feature list: ultra-high-definition scanning sonar, Panoptix support, preloaded mapping, and a tweaked display optic. The question is whether those high-end features justify the price tag for a typical boater. First, let's talk about who this unit really serves. If you're a weekend fisherman who mostly drops anchor near a familiar shoreline, a basic depth finder with a simple map overlay will probably get you where you need to be. The 943xsv, however, shines for people who spend half the day moving from one prime spot to another, especially on larger bodies of water where currents and underwater structures shift dramatically. The ultra-high-definition scanning sonar captures layers of fish activity, allowing you to spot schools or individual targets that a lower-resolution system would simply blur into a grey patch. That level of detail is something you'll notice when you're trolling a lake with a lot of weed, or when you're navigating around submerged rocks in a river. I also spent time thinking about the practical workflow. Imagine you're out at dawn, the mist is still hanging over the water, and you need to plot a route quickly. The preloaded mapping on the 943xsv means you don't have to download charts on the spot. The charts are already baked into the unit, which reduces the hassle of juggling a phone or notebook. The display optics have been improved according to Garmin's notes, and in real-world usage that translates into a screen that stays readable even when the sun is at its highest. I've seen anglers squint at older models, trying to decipher faint lines, and the difference here is noticeable, especially when you're trying to adjust course on the fly. Now, the hidden trade-offs. The biggest one is power consumption. A unit that offers more sonar detail and a brighter, clearer screen does draw more from your boat's battery. For short trips, that's a non-issue, but if you're planning an all-day outing with multiple stops, you'll need to monitor your power budget, or have a dedicated auxiliary battery. Some users on marine forums mentioned that the unit's battery draw can shave off an hour or two from a standard deep cycle battery, so plan your power plan accordingly. Another practical consideration is the learning curve. The screen is packed with features. You can toggle between scanning and traditional sonar, switch among depth layers, and even integrate live weather data if you have a separate Garmin module. For someone who's never touched a multibeam sonar before, the initial setup can feel a bit overwhelming. However, Garmin's interface is designed to be menu-driven, and once you get past the first couple of hours of tinkering, the workflow becomes second nature. If you're comfortable spending a Saturday afternoon fine-tuning settings, the payoff is a system that adapts to your fishing style. If you prefer plug-and-play gear, you might feel like you're wrestling with a computer rather than a simple depth gauge. Strengths that matter beyond the headline specs include the reliability of the Panoptix sonar support. Panoptix gives a more three-dimensional view of what's under the water, which is especially useful when you're dealing with varying bottom topography. In a recent case study shared on a fishing subreddit, a user credited the Panoptix view with helping them locate a deepwater perch that would have been missed on a conventional sonar. That kind of real-world success story is what separates a marketing claim from everyday usefulness. On the downside, the unit's physical size is worth mentioning. At about 7 inches across, it's larger than many handheld fish finders, so you'll need a dedicated mounting location on your console. If your boat's dashboard is already crowded with a chart plotter, VHF, and a stereo system, fitting the 943xsv can require a bit of rearranging, or you might need a custom bracket. That's not a problem for larger vessels, but for smaller skiffs it could be a limiting factor. Pricing is also a factor that keeps many buyers on the fence. The Garmin 943xsv sits in a premium bracket, and while the ultra-high-definition scanning sonar and preloaded mapping add obvious value, you have to weigh that against how often you'll actually leverage those capabilities. If you're fishing multiple times a week, tracking the subtle changes